enrollment. Oh, thank you, Maria. Today we're going to do a refresher on the enrollment package. Specifically, I want to touch on the subsidiary print from the FSA, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show what that print looks like. Hopefully everybody can see that. So when your producers go into the FSA and fill out their paperwork, this is what they need to bring to us, or bring to you, that you're going to attach to their enrollment package. We do not need copies of every form from the FSA that they're filling out. And if you try to get all those copies, you're probably going to run into issues of people's personal PII, their personal information. This is just an overview print that the FSA can provide to them that you're going to want to attach to your enrollment. So I just want to make that real clear. We don't need all of the FSA documents with their enrollment, just this subsidiary print. And this is what it'll look like. And this will be something that they'll print out for you in the FSA, and then you will be able to scan it, connect it to their enrollment package, and send it on in. So just as a reminder here at the top of the hour, we are so next week will be office hours, so bring general questions on Monday. The week after, on the 30th, we have a representative from Green Cover Seed that will be talking about cover cropping and livestock integration with cover cropping, and that should be a pretty good webinar. So again, that's on Monday the 30th. So today I'm going to go through a few of the questions we're receiving through the enrollment package or through the enrollment process, and then you guys can ask questions if you have any. But I also have here the enrollment package. Hopefully everyone's seeing that. I just want to remind you, these are due on the 15th of November. So we're coming up here pretty quickly. When you're filling these out, ensure that you have version 1.0 down at the bottom of this sheet. That's our newest version of this enrollment package, and it is on our website. If you download it from our website, that's the one you're going to get, but that's the one you want to make sure you have. We fixed a few errors at some point last spring, but this should have been the one that went out to you all when you received your contract information and your enrollment documents. But just make sure that you have that version 1.0. So, you know, some of this is going to be self-explanatory. I also want to highlight here the producer ID. This number came to you when you got your contract information and when you got your enrollment package. We provided you with a list of unique numbers that were for each district or entity. And what you're going to want to do is choose one of those numbers that was provided to you. There's one for each producer that space that you have in the program. Choose one of those numbers and put it into this specific spot on your enrollment package or on your enrollment documentation. Again, they're going to need to go in there to the FSA and establish their records and fill out these following forms. But once more, I do not need those forms. Please do not send them to us. What we need is a subsidiary print. And so when they're done, so when they're done filling out their paperwork with the FSA, they will be able to request one of these forms and attach it to their enrollment. Again, they need to do this after October 1st. So right now would be the time they need to be getting into the FSA and getting their determination for fiscal year 2024, federal fiscal year, and getting these documents filled out and getting that subsidiary print. So, and also worth noting, they do not need to worry about the adjusted gross income. They do have to fill out the paperwork for it, but we are not holding them to an AGI level, and they are also not bound by payment limitations for farm bill payment limitations like they are with other federal programs. Also, as a reminder, they cannot receive climate smart commodities grant funds on one field from two different sources. So if they are participating, say, in zero food prints, grant process, and it's this second round, which they're doing now. That is climate smart commodities money. The first round was not. That was private money. They can't use those funds on the same field. So with other federal funds, you can use the funds on the same field. They just can't be for the same practice. But climate smart commodities money there cannot be two sets of climate smart commodities on the same tract when the FSA goes to when the USDA goes to review our farm and tract numbers. Also, please do not forget to attach your map of the enrolled field. This is going to be real important, and we want to be able to find that field based off of that map. A lot of this is going to be pretty simple, but we do need that map with the polygon denoting the field boundary, clearly marked roads, landmarks, all that stuff. We want to be able to look at that map and know where this is going to be. We're asking for latitude and longitude. Last year, folks had some issues with this or our last enrollment period. So we're just ask you to double check that. You can go on Google Earth and click on your property there or hover over it, and it's going to give you latitude and longitude. What acreage is being enrolled, how many acres of land does the producer manage in total. So this could include leased ground, owned ground, Forest Service leases, things like that. We're wanting to know how much land they impact in total. And then we're asking you to tell us how they would implement their chosen practices if they are successful at them, how they would implement them across all their property if they would. If they won't, then let us know. This next part, we're trying to just get a history of the cropping. And again, please be as detailed as you can. We're trying to get a history of what's happening on the particular enrolled field for the past 5 years and what they're growing this year currently. And then we just have a little bit of supplemental questions as to what type of irrigation system they might be using, if it is irrigated, what their surface or where their irrigation water comes from, what's their source. And we're asking them how many acre inches of water are applied in an average season. So if they don't know how to figure this out and you don't know how to figure this out, feel free to contact us at the CDA_soil email address and let us know that you don't know how to figure out their acreage application, and I'd be glad to provide you with some resources on that. We're asking for their recent yields, moisture content of their harvest if they know it or if it's relevant, and then we're asking how this field matches to the rest of their operation. We would like to know the general questions about what they're doing on the field. Are they applying pesticides, nutrients, synthetic fertilizers? And then we want to know their resource concerns. So what is it? What are they treating or hoping to improve by implementing these practices? What are they doing now for their soil health? So give us a brief background of their soil health journey. And is the field covered by crop insurance? This has been something that we're aware of being an issue for folks, as some of these practices might impact their crop insurance. So we'd like to know that so we can take it into account in the future. This next part, the new soil health practices, is going to be incredibly important to us. And this would probably be areas where if you do not provide enough information, we might have to turn back enrollments and ask you for more info. We need to know which of the principles of soil health they're going to be addressing, and then we need very detailed description of what soil health practices they want to implement on these fields in the coming years, or on this field in the coming years. So practice or practices. So this is really where we're capturing what they're going to do while they're enrolled in this program. And then again, we want to know exactly what practices they're doing that will incur costs that they'll be submitting for reimbursement for their matching funds. So be very specific here. If they don't know exactly how they're going to implement the practice, they just know like they are going to do cover cropping, say they're going to be working on that, maybe changing it a little bit each year, that's fine, but we need to know cover cropping is what we're going to be doing on this enrolled field for the next 3 years. Small changes aside, that practice will be the constant. And then we're asking them what barriers they might be running into and what are their long-term soil health goals for this field. And that's another important one that we really would like you to have that discussion with them when you're doing that initial consultation, when you're out there meeting with them the first time. Really see what their long-term goal is for the property we're working with. And that sort of wraps it up here. I'm going through this pretty quick. We have, if you want to go back to our YouTube channel, I went through the enrollment package in more depth, but I'm going to focus on a few questions we've had coming in. So I didn't think we need to go through this too in depth, but so the final part here, just talk to them about soil testing. We will be doing that sometime between April 1st and July 1st of 2024. So let them know that's going to happen. And we'll be providing some webinars on that later in the winter. Also let them know that a soil moisture monitoring system will be installed on their enrolled field between February 1st and July 1st of 2024. And again, we'll be doing some further follow-up on that later. And then this year, a little bit different than last year. We're asking for a signature between the producer and a signature between the conservation district or entity. Really what we're saying here is that we wanted to really strengthen our agreement with the producers, with your agreement with them, saying that they are committing to 3 years of participating in this program, and then a 4th year where we're doing the closeout, where we'll be talking to them and things like that. So we just really want to hammer home here that they're in this for a few years, and that's the point of this signature block. And then of course we have our privacy statement about protecting people's information. Any info that they provide to us through this program will their personally identifiable information will be safeguarded by us, including their names and addresses. So we won't be releasing that to anybody. So their privacy is assured. Any data that Colorado State University uses will not identify them directly and will only identify them on a broader overview without, again, using their name or address. So once again, November 15th coming up pretty soon. They do have to get that FSA paperwork done after October 1st. So now we should be in that point where folks are going and filling out these papers and establishing their farm records if they haven't already. And then we need that subsidiary print, which will be for federal fiscal year 2024. If you're encountering issues with the FSA process, then please let us know. Again, email our CDA_soil email address and let us know that you're having issues. I know there were folks having issues originally, and they were attempting to get all the forms printed out from FSA, and FSA was hesitant to print those out and provide them. So the subsidiary print is going to be much easier. When the producer goes in and fills out the paperwork, before they leave the office, they can say, I need that subsidiary print, and the FSA should print that document out and give it to them. Again, it looks like this: producer subsidiary print. Can't highlight it. It's going to have their name and address, their phone number, and then it's going to, once they've filled out that paperwork, this is all going to populate with the answers to their answers relevant to their paperwork. So this is the thing that needs to be clipped onto the enrollment package. All right, now I'm going to go through a few questions that we have been encountering, and then we'll open it up to questions from all of you. So the first one I want to address is back pay. So producers are enrolling by November 15th, but their crop year began October 1st. So there is a gap here that was caused by us having to get the FSA paperwork done in 2024, the federal fiscal year 2024. So we had an overlap between the crop year starting and the enrollment starting, the enrollment deadline. So the question is, if producers right now in October are wanting to plant a cover crop as their new practice on their enrolled field, is that something that would be, would they be able to submit that, the costs of that cover crop as their reimbursement match, even though they're not enrolling until November 15th? And the answer is yes, they can, if they are choosing exempt practices out of our CPA 52 exemption list. So if you go into the grant guidelines to the practice implementation area and look at the exemption list of practices, and the practice they want to implement is on that list, and they meet the there's a few caveats, as long as they're not going to have to do a CPA 52 based off those caveats and off that list, then yes, they can submit things that they're doing now for payment once they're enrolled. Do bear in mind that they are taking a bit of a risk. So let's say they go and submit those, or they go and do those practices right now, and then for whatever reason their enrollment package is missing information, they are unwilling to get their FSA determination done or something like that, and we are not able to get all the paperwork we need from them, then they may not be able to enroll in the program, and those practices that they have done would not be reimbursed. But as long as they fill out their FSA paperwork and you send us in a enrollment package that has good, concise answers that are filling out the needs of our questionnaire, then we will reimburse them for practices they're doing now. However, if they are choosing a non-exempt practice, so a practice that is ground disturbing below the plow zone, like fencing or other non-exempt practices off of the practice implementation list in the grant guidelines, they cannot receive back pay for those practices. So those practices, we have to do some surveying, like a visual survey of the field and things like that. So if they're choosing those practices, there's going to be some delay as we get them through the enrollment process and through the CPA 52 process, and they cannot begin those practices on that non-exempt list until after all that paperwork is done. So the only situation where we can back pay is when they choose the exempt practices. If they choose non-exempt, there will be no back pay, and they should not start the practice until after the paperwork has been completed for their CPA 52 surveys. Hopefully that's about as clear as mud to everybody. If you have questions about whether the practice that they want to implement could be eligible for back pay versus not, please email the CDA_soil email, and we'll get back to you and let you know whether the practice you're talking about would be something they could do now and receive back pay, or something that they would do that they need to wait on. Another question that's come up a lot over the last couple of years, and we went back and forth a lot on this, is irrigation costs. So the official policy here is we will not cover any physical irrigation infrastructure or pieces. So if they want to put in some type of sprinkler system, this is not the program to do that. That would be something they need to be looking at EQIP or another program. We're also not nozzling pivots and things of that nature. No physical irrigation parts or pieces should be submitted for reimbursement. However, their time and labor and efforts to irrigate can be submitted, as long as they are related to the soil health practice they are implementing. So if they plant a cover crop or some type of fall cover and they have to water it up and they irrigate it a couple times, or if they're had to change something, if they have to water to support the cover or the practice that we are that is their chosen practice in the program, then you can submit their labor and efforts to do that irrigation. Electric bills. We've had a lot of questions about people using their center pivot electric bill and submitting that as their reimbursement. That is acceptable as long as they can break it out and show the relationship, its direct relationship to the soil health practice they've chosen. So again, if they're irrigating some type of cover crop, and they have to run their pivot to do it a couple times, then break out the revolutions of that pivot, the cost of those revolutions out by percent, or however you can do it out of their electric bill, and submit it to us. So we will pay for labor, we will pay for electric bill, we'll pay for costs associated with that irrigation, aside from physical pieces to a system. So anything other than physical pieces, as long as they can show a direct correlation to the soil health practice that they're implementing, the new practice. Another question we've had recently is what happens if a producer wanted to, say, buy all of their seed in the first year, and then just each year submit their match for that seed. So let's say they were going to buy $20,000 worth of seed the first year, and then they were going to store it and use that seed in subsequent years and submit it for match in the following years. That is not going to work out. They would just be overmatched in the first year. The product that they're claiming for reimbursement, the seed in this case, and the labor and everything involved with seeding, that product has to be purchased in that year, in that crop year, and the practice has to be implemented in that crop year if you're going to submit it for reimbursement. So no purchasing a large amount of stuff and then holding it over for following years. Another common question we've had is, would we prefer you to send single emails for each individual producer, or batch all of your emails together and send them, or all your producers together and send them all at once? We would prefer you to batch your producers together, even if you have to, say, do 5 and 5 and send us 2 emails. It would help us with sorting to have them in the least amount of emails possible. So hopefully not, if you have 10 plus producers, 13 producers, we would hope to not receive 13 emails. If that's how you have to do it, we will accept them that way, but please, for our sanity, attempt to group them into larger chunks if you can. I think that's getting close to what I had to talk about. We had a question about how long producer reimbursements will take. So once you submit your correctly filled out form, so that correctly filled out reimbursement form is a key word, correctly. Once we get the full correctly filled out form with any attached paperwork that is associated with reimbursement, such as receipts and things like that, you can expect to have those funds hit your account within 2 weeks. That is our ideal amount of time. If you wait until September 30th and submit a package of 13 producer reimbursement forms, and you're right on the deadline date, many other people might also hit that deadline date. And in that case, it may take us longer to process the payments than those 2 weeks. If you submit them during the summer and we are not slammed with every single producer at one time, we can guarantee the payments we will get those payments turned around to you within 2 weeks. But again, if you hit right on the deadline, and we have hundreds to process at one time, you may expect a delay. And now I guess that sort of wraps it up for me. Again, I can't stress enough, if you are, oh, I did have one other thing. We've had some folks ask, what if I submit my enrollment package now and I do my field consultation and meeting with the producer in the spring? That's totally fine. We we're okay. And we realize now is maybe not the most ideal time to be doing field consultations, and some folks are even out of town maybe, but are still interested in participating. And you could do a phone conversation with them to fill out the enrollment package. They have their FSA paperwork done, etc. And you want to do your initial consultation in the spring, that's fine. We do need to know what practice they want to implement so we can determine whether they're going to be in that exempt category or the non-exempt category, and that'll help us determine how to move forward. So on November 15th, we need to know certain things, such as what practices they want to implement, what field it is, have that map, those types of things are key. And if we don't have those things, we're going to submit it back to you and say, we need more information, and it could potentially affect their enrollment. So it's fine if you want to do that over the phone with them and then catch up with them later on for details, but we do need some stuff concrete when you send in the enrollment package. Again, I can't stress enough, email us at cda_soil@state.co.us. That's cda_soil@state.co.us with any questions you might be running into as you're going through this enrollment process. And one of us will get back to you quickly to help you to resolve whatever issue you're running into. And now I'd be glad to take some questions from the group if folks have any questions. It looks like Vanessa McCracken raised her hand. Vanessa?
Hi, John. Thanks for all that information. It's very helpful. My question is, I fully understand what you're saying about the November 15th deadline and which practices, non-ground disturbing or ground disturbing. I'm wondering if there's any sort of contingency for not making the deadline, or producers, or things changing in the next 3 years. Like, I could just see potential for, depending on the weather and every other thing in the world, like if they want to go between those kinds of practices, is there any way to like move back and forth over the course of the 3 years?
I would say, so this brings up the fact that we do have to do the FSA determination every fall for these producers. So they'll have to do it in 25 and in 26 as well. So each year they want to receive a payment, they're going to have to go in and update their FSA paperwork. I'm told there's an app they can do that on once they get the initial paperwork established. But that does give us the opportunity to potentially add practices as we go along. I would say that may hold up payments and slow down the process. And what I would prefer is that what you would do is err on the side of caution now and add more practices. So if they're not going to add more practices like any that they think they might do. And then if they don't do some of them, there's no harm, no foul, right? But so I guess what I'm saying is, if they even think that there's a chance in the next 3 years they might do prescribed grazing or something, add that practice in there, even if it might not happen the first year, or if it might not happen at all. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, good advice. Thank you. And then like the hard deadline of the 15th, is there any, I don't know, just it's a lot from the 30 days from now to get all that.
We will, so if you don't make it by the 15th, it will not be the end of the world. Please contact us up front, and we would like to know why you can't make it for our own feedback. So some of these things, the sooner we have them, the sooner we can make payments, and there's going to be a lot of things that have to happen on our side. So that's why we gave the November 15th deadline. I don't want to say that deadline doesn't matter at all in this in this meeting today. But if you can't get all your producers in by that date, we're willing to work with you. But please try as much as possible to get as many as you can, and then let us know if you're not going to. So that we can be aware there's going to be some outstanding ones.
Okay, understood. Thank you, John.
Okay. And it looks like Michaela has her hand raised.
Yes, I have several questions. One is, do you have to be a US citizen or just be legally here in this country to be part of this program?
That's a very good question. I think that the answer is yes, you have to be a US citizen, but I am not certain of that. That would be a good question for the FSA.
Okay, for FSA.
They'd be able to tell you. That's I'm certain that's something they ask when they're filling out some of that, some of these the documents in the enrollment package. Sorry, there's a thing in my way. There's the FSA documents they have to fill out, and I think that's one of the questions in there. And I that would be something that is part of their federal determination of eligibility to receive funds.
And the other thing, so the enrollment package, you do this via the internet, right, on the FSA website?
I think there might be parts that you have to do in person initially, but I'm not certain. That'd be a good
I'm sorry, in person as in person where?
at an FSA office. So they're generally in the ones that I've seen generally share an office with the NRCS, so it's their local federal office building. I think
Okay.
they're called FPAC buildings. And there's generally one in each county.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You bet. And if you have a hard time locating your FSA office, drop us an email and we'll help you out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's a couple questions in the chat. Will the program reimburse for purchase of animals to be introduced on the STAR field? And can a producer submit more than one match reimbursement, say for a fall cover crop seed purchase now, then for an additional practice next spring, summer? So the second question is easy to answer. Yes, they can. But what I would ask for you to do would be to save. I guess it depends on if they can't float that amount, we would be fine if they submit their match more than one time. But if they could float it and submit it all in one reimbursement, that would be more convenient on our end, but we could handle that either way. But yes, as long as they're not over that, the $10,000 match for their $5,000 reimbursement, they could submit a second one. And then the question about the animals, that's something I'm going to have to get back to you about. And what I could do is bring the answer to that question to our next office hours, which would be next Monday, or to our next webinar, which is on the 30th. I want to say yes, but I'm going to hold off and say yes tentatively. Here's a producer managing more than one property. How do I handle enrolling more than one field in different locations? So at this point, we are asking people to maximize or to have a maximum of 2 fields per producer. So please don't go over that amount. We are asking you to spread your program participation slots around to as many producers as you can. So I'm not sure if that producer would be 2 of your slots, or if it would be 1 enrollment, but they have 2 smaller fields. So I guess I would ask for some clarification on the question. But if they're going to do 2 fields, I would say we will need 2 enrollment pages, because we're going to need their farm and track for both fields. And we're going to need a map for both fields, what their soil health goals are for both fields, what practices they're going to do for both fields, etc. Independently. So I would say you would need to submit 2 enrollments for them. And I see another question about the animals. I will find that out.
Hey, John.
Yes.
My entity will probably be mostly doing exempt sorts of practices that apply to reducing disturbance or soil armoring. But one of the other main tenets of their approach is the use of compost. And how would that fall into the soil health principle categories if that was the one box they could check for a certain year?
That's a good question, Greg. I think that would be, let's just check soil armoring or residue management. How about that?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it
Um,
fits in there. I just wanted to be
It's
clear.
not the clearest thing. I mean, there almost needs to be another soil health principle of increasing soil organic carbon or something. But
Yeah. Okay.
let's just check soil armoring or residue management, and then in detail below describe the application of the compost, please.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Just wanted to be sure before I sent in a pile of these that had that on it. Thank you.
You bet.
Don,
Yep.
this is Tanya in Yuma County. Question in regards to, we have some people wanting to do, like they do crop rotation. So I've just wanting to seek clarification, if they signed up multiple fields and then did crop rotation with cover crops and did like reduced till, could they do that as far as, you know, they have one field with crop rotation or with the cover crop, and then they have reduced till? Can they work through those fields in that way in order to do the rotation? How can they do that?
I think so. Yeah. If you want to, so this is similar to like the prescribed grazing. It's not just affecting one field. So you're
Right.
saying having two fields essentially, but treating them with one plan of attack, sort of. Yeah. I would say again, fill out, because we need that field information for both fields, fill out an enrollment for each one, and then in the detail describe how those two fields are going to in the details space, describe how they're going to manage those two fields and how the rotation will occur over both fields. This is really similar to folks last year taking a large field and then splitting it in half and doing crop rotation between the two sides of the field. So these are just physically removed from each other, I guess, would be what I'm guessing.
Correct. And then if we want to muddy, so that's one producer that we're talking to, and then we can muddy the water further as far as like if we had a producer that has potatoes, or we also have a producer that's looking at the program that does pumpkins, that would rotate through as well, more for you know, to have the stars as a marketing for that specific product. Would they just sign up the multiple fields that they would rotate those through and then implement, you know, the reduced till or that type of thing on the other fields as they're moving that crop through?
So I guess you can go through the STAR certification or the STAR field evaluations without being part of STAR Plus, without being part of this program. So you can get a STAR evaluation without getting incentives. So I guess keep that in mind. But I guess I may be a little unsure of what the question is. You did muddy the waters pretty good.
So they're sorry. So they're wanting
it's fine.
if they signed up for the Star Plus program and are participating,
Mm-hmm.
but they're going to have pumpkins on field A for 24, and then they're going to move their pumpkins to field B for as a rotation. So it's a 3-year rotation crop. So then they'd have them on the next field the following year and the next field the following year. So would they sign up in order to stay in the Star Plus and be able to elevate their star rating? Would they do all three and then just do, like we had talked about earlier, to do maybe reduce till on the other ones and just kind of rotate it through so that they could help, but also have the pumpkins as their crop?
Yes. So I would put crop rotation as for both field A and field B, I would choose crop rotation and reduce till as your practices in this situation.
Okay, perfect. And then they would do a cover crop or something as the alternate as they're rotating through too. So there would be multiple, but that would be what they're kind of looking to do.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like they would be doing crop rotation on both fields and reduced tillage on both fields. It looks like Penny has her hand up.
Hi, John. I just
Hi,
have
Penny.
one question regarding the NRCS practice implementation. Our TSPs are not comfortable as far as talking to the producers about some of these practices. And I know that you said the local NRCS office, we should not be going to talk to them. What is our options as far as getting definitions of some of these practices that are on these available new practice implementations?
So the practices are, you can look up those practices with the practice code online, and it has and you can find the NRCS code practice standard will come up at the top. And so that's going to be, that's what I do, is go look at those practice codes and look at like maybe the first main paragraph, which is going to have what the general idea of the practice is, and then what and then there's going to be like a bulleted section of how the practices can be implemented. So I would say Google them and go look there. If your technical assistance provider feels uncomfortable with the practice, then maybe we with helping to implement those practices, then maybe we need to have a discussion between us and them and you also to see which ones they are having the problem with. We're going to be hiring and maybe your technical assistance provider could reach out to other CSU folks or technical assistance providers to help them to get more comfortable with that practice. Also, we are going to be hiring field technicians, and one of their main they should be coming up here by spring, hopefully in January, and one of their main jobs is going to be the knowledge of what practice would fit into which one of the standards. So I guess I would say at the moment, if you're having a hard time with the practice standards, contact me and we can talk about this and see if I can find you some help individually.
So if I find out what their desire is as far as implementation of if they want to do something along the lines like a windbreak or something like that, I just need to get clarification that it would fall into windbreak or herbaceous
Yes.
wind barrier or tree and shrub establishment or.
Yes. So when you know what they want to do, you feel free to email us that description and I can help you to figure out what to call it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we have my CSU extension team and NRCS team are asking for clarification on their roles during the enrollment process. So the technical assistance providers, we've been working with them as to what their roles are. I'm assuming that's who you're talking about with the CSU extension team. They, they're really there to help you with technical questions, so implementation of practices. So as you're going through the enrollment, I mean, I could see areas in the enrollment package where you would need them and areas where you wouldn't. You definitely, don't need them to fill out the document for you, but you might need to ask them for help in how the producer might say, I want to reduce erosion on my field, but I'm not sure what I want to do. And that's where your technical assistance provider, you could have them talk to the producer, talk to you. You guys all have a conversation and they could come up with some ideas of practices that person could implement to help with their erosion problem. And then those would be the practices you'd be writing down. The NRCS, really, this is a USDA grant. It's not an NRCS grant, and we are trying not to burden the already busy NRCS staff with more work. So we're trying to leave them alone if at all possible. They definitely I don't see a huge amount of need for them during the enrollment process. It's really going to be the producer filling out the FSA forms, getting that subsidiary print, and then you helping to bridge that gap for their technical assistance and get them and get their chosen practices onto this form. And then, as they get to the point of implementing the actual practice, they might have questions about planting styles or timing or seeding ratios, etc. And that would be another area where you're going to get CSU involved. But for the enrollment itself, you're just trying to figure out what they want to do to address their resource concerns. Susie has her hand up.
Hey, good morning, John. Thanks for all the help you're giving us here. A quick question back to Andrea's question about having a producer have 2 separate fields and 2 separate applications. If that producer has 2 applications, is that 2 of your allowable producers?
So it depends. Again, we're asking you to spread this out to as many producers as you can. We've had some folks saying they're worried they're not going to fill all their spots, but then they have a producer who's already in the program who would use a second field. If you're not going to fill all your spots, then by all means, let's make sure we get as many fields enrolled as we can. But again, we're trying to we're asking you to try to spread this to as many producers as you can. But I think so. We've had people ask, what if I have a producer with 2 fields side by side and they want to do 2 different practices on each field and then do a comparison? And if you have all your spots filled, but that guy's got 1 spot, and he wants both fields in the program, and maybe that'll help him get to his match easier, then I would say 1 slot with 2 fields enrolled is fine. If you can't get all of your spots filled, and I guess it also has depend on the size of the acreage of the field. So if you get 2 30-acre fields, and that's going to get the 1 producer with their 1 slot to 60 acres, then that would be fine to leave them as 1 slot and just do 2 enrollments. If they're both 200-acre fields that they're enrolling, maybe it'd make sense to give them 2 different producer slots. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. So arbitrary.
I'd hate to use the word arbitrary, but how about if you
Fine.
No,
It depends. Let's use that
it
word.
should not be arbitrary. I don't like that. So if that's how it sounds, how about if you send me your specific example of what your producer is doing at the CDA_soil email, and I will help you to make a determination as to how to proceed. How's that sound?
That sounds perfect. Thank you, John.
Instead of arbitrary, we'll say case by case basis. Michaela asked, how many spots are there? Does it go by county? So when you were first approved to be a participant in the program, you were notified of a certain amount of spots. If you were already participating, you could have went up to 10. So if you had 7, you could have added 3 to get your 10, and then you could have requested an additional 10. So it's going to be solely dependent on what your contract is. I would bet, Michaela, that you have 10 spots, but if you would like to email us with clarification, we'll check your contract and tell you how many spots you have. But it would have been in your initial contracting paperwork that you received.
I'm not sure that I have any contract, so this is where I guess I don't know if I filled anything out for that. So
what entity are you with?
I'm sorry?
What entity are you with?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
What entity are you with?
Oh, I'm with Colorado State University. I'm the extension agronomist for the southeast area of Colorado.
Aha, so you're a technical assistance provider.
Oh, so it doesn't, to me, I don't know. I don't, anyway, I'm sorry.
You're fine. How about if I give you a call?
That sounds wonderful.
Boy, this has been a hard hitting one, everybody. You guys got the good questions. All right, do we have any more questions? We're nearing the top of the hour. I will get back to everybody about the question of purchasing animals. And I will let you know. Again, our office hours next Monday at 11 a.m., where you can bring general questions like this. Feel free at any time to reach out to us. And the best route is our CDA underscore at CDA underscore soil at state.co.us. Please email that email address with your questions. And if we need to give you a call, we'll call you, but that's the best route to get in touch with us for questions and get your questions answered, or bring them to the office hours next week. And as I said, on the 30th, we will be doing a webinar with Green Cover Seed about cover crop implementation into people's operations and livestock cover crop interaction, grazing, etc. Thank you for bringing the good questions, and I hope folks are having luck out there finding producers, and that this process has not been too crazy. But please feel free to email us with your questions and comments. And if we have any other questions, I'm going to going once, going twice. All right. Thank you all for coming today.